If you're still earning the same salary that you were earning this time last year, then you're making less money than you were making last year. So what's the plan? What's the strategy? And I have news for you. Sending out CVs and hoping for the best is not a strategy. And working hard and working long hours is also not a strategy. The thing about a successful career is that it doesn't happen without intentional planning. It doesn't happen by accident. The other day, I came across somebody's TikTok page who was actually giving CV tips for remote jobs. I came across a comment on that post where someone was saying, at this point, we will change our CVs forever. This job thing is a luck thing. And that just rubbed me up the wrong way because I'm a firm believer that luck meets preparation. As someone who has been promoted 4 times, has had 3 international secondments, and has worked at 3 companies, I see myself as a professional trier. So I'm going to try the tips that he gives in his guide and see if luck won't meet my preparation. I dare you to find one extremely successful person who got where they are with no effort and nothing but luck. Because it takes more than luck to have a successful business. It takes more than luck to become an executive at a company. It takes more than luck to be a successful content creator. Even if you blew up on your first video, you still had to sit in front of the camera, press record, and have the courage to upload your video. It takes more than luck to be a successful artist. Look at the amount of effort that Michael Jackson put into his craft. Most of the time, success doesn't fall on your laps. And if it does, it won't stay long if you fold your arms. So I'm going to need you to have a little bit of agency and urgency about your life and about your career. So now that I'm done with my crash out monologue, let's get into the topic of the day, which is career management planning. So here are 6 tips to get you started on your career management. Number 1 is that you need to identify what it is that you want for your life and for your career. We can't actually map out a path until we have a destination. So what does a good life look like to you? And how much do you need to be able to get there? For me, last year when I was looking for a house, I came to realize that what I actually want is upwards of 2.5 million. And I have this idea that I want to have a fully paid off home by the time I'm 40. I also want to take my son to a Montessori crash, and I want to be the type of parent who pays school fees upfront every year. So the life I actually want is more expensive than what I'm currently making, which then necessitates the planning that I need to do to be able to get to my objective. So you need to be asking yourself, can the career I'm in get me to my dream? Am I in the right place for optimal growth? Do I need an additional income stream? Do I need a business, or do I need a new job? That's what you need to figure out. The second tip is you need to understand your weaknesses. So once you've identified where you want to go, the next part is actually identifying the obstacles that might prevent you from getting where you want to go. Now, I have figured out that to get to my objective, I need to go higher or I need to go somewhere else, and I can potentially make enough money to achieve my dream. Being able to identify your weaknesses is something that requires self-awareness. You need to know yourself very well, and you need to be able to be honest with yourself about yourself. But you can also ask other people for feedback. So I've discovered 2 things that might be a potential hindrance to what I want to achieve. So in my current role, I actually deal with executives. I have to present things to them and the board committees. And what I've realized about myself is that I tend to be very anxious in those situations, which affects my ability to articulate myself. Now, the key as well at this stage is to focus on weaknesses that you can actually change. And the third step is, now that you've identified your weaknesses, you need to now bridge the gap. So the first way that you can bridge the gap is to get a mentor. You need to hang around the greats to become great. When I was at Deloitte, they used to actually give us like a career coach whose role was actually to mentor us. And I had a really great mentor, and I learned a lot of things from her. So I think having a mentor is so invaluable. It will help you to get further faster. A few weeks ago, I was actually at a work event, and I had the chairperson of WITSA speaking, and she spoke so eloquently, and I couldn't help but think to myself, I need to learn how to speak like that. I landed as well on her LinkedIn page, and it happened to have her email address on it. So I sent her an email asking her if she could mentor me, and she agreed. And we're actually going to have our first session early in June. Now, this is how I can actually actively work on addressing my weakness of articulating myself in front of executives. Another way that you can actually put yourself amongst the greats is to read books and also listen to podcasts. Some of my favorite podcasts that have had a really good influence on my life are Mindset Profits, the Mel Robbins one, and then Fire with Emma Grede. Earlier, I mentioned that hard work is not a strategy, but hard work with the correct audience can actually help you to bridge the gap. If you want to get promoted at work, you need to actually impress the key decision makers. So a few years ago, I actually decided to go all in on my desire to get promoted to manager. At the time, I only had 6 months to prove myself because I was pregnant and I was going to go on maternity leave for the rest of the period. So I quickly realized that I had three audiences that I had to cater to in order to be noticed. The first was the client, the second was the financial auditors, and then my actual senior manager and partner on the projects that I was working on. Now, the key to impressing your audience is to know what they want and what they want to achieve and helping them to achieve it. So I already knew what I had to do to be able to impress all these three stakeholders. So I was sleeping at 2 a.m. almost every night trying to meet my objectives. Eventually, it paid off because I started to get compliments from both my partner and the partner on the financial audit side. And the partner on my engagement ended up vouching for me to get promoted, and I did get promoted. So the lesson is work hard in front of the right people and take care of your brand. It doesn't help if the only audience for your hard work is your peers who have no influence at all over whether you progress or not. And for me, this was also a lesson that I had to learn because I joined EY in February of 2022 with another lady, and that lady got promoted in October of that same year. Now, I could look at her and think she's lucky, but the truth is she put in the work and intentionality that I didn't when I joined. So bridging the gap might look different for you. You may need to go back to school to bridge the gap. You may need to join Toastmasters, or you might even have to do some training to be able to bridge the gap. Number 4 is advocate for yourself. You know that saying that says that hard work is not going to speak for you? That is so true. You need to communicate the value that you're adding for people to notice. Early in my career, when I used to rate myself for performance reviews, I used to be very humble when scoring myself. But what I've learned is that you're not doing anyone any favors by playing small. We are currently in performance season at my workplace right now, and what I want from my team is to actually score themselves and come to me with what they actually want the result to be and defend it. You need to go into your performance session knowing what you want and backing it up. Here's what I want you to consider when it comes to your next performance cycle. You need to actually plan way beforehand. The first thing you need to do is to understand what matters to your boss and how do you make his or her life easier. Now, for me, it was two things. One of them was the fact that I noticed that he reviews all of the division's reports, and that's a taxing task. So I decided that my reports are going to be the easiest reports that he will review because the quality will be so good. Now, the next thing is you need to solicit feedback on what you're doing well and what you're not doing well so that you can have an idea of what you need to actually improve on. And then lastly, I would recommend that you take your KPIs and create an action plan for each of the KPIs and monitor it maybe on a quarterly basis to see that you have action items for each of those KPIs and that you're improving on those KPIs. So in essence, work on adding value. Do you think someone whose life you're making easier would argue when you're asking for an increase? It should be undeniable, undisputable, unchallengeable that you are the best of the best. The next one is align your work to your personal values to achieve sustainability. So I have 4 primary values when it comes to my work. The first one is enjoying the work. Like, does this work make me want to get up in the morning? The second one is flexibility, which is something that my current job doesn't allow for, so it's actually not aligned to my values. The next one is having a life. After working for 10 years, I'm no longer willing to work like a dog. I'm no longer willing to take work home every day. I've done my time. And then the last one is autonomy. This is actually the freedom to actually run my team the way that I want, which is something that I feel like I do get in my current role. But just note that alignment to personal values is something that you need to consider when you already have an established career. So it can't be day one and then you're thinking all your values must be met. And then the last tip is don't be afraid to pivot. Don't get caught up in the how. So when you're trying to get to Cape Town, it doesn't matter whether you fly SA Fair, whether you fly SAA, or you take the Greyhound bus, as long as you get there. So if one way is not working, don't be afraid to try another way. If this career thing is not working, don't be afraid to go and try out a business or a different career. What comes to mind as a good example for this is MultiChoice. So MultiChoice went on a journey of trying to improve Showmax. They brought this new revamped Showmax, but it still wasn't making any money. So they actually had to let it go. So when you've tried your best and your best is still not producing results, it's time to pivot. It's time to dream another dream. Don't spend too much time grieving what could have been when there's so much that can still be. God will open other doors. And that's what I had in store for you when it comes to managing your career.